Hey guys, it's WooGs here. Bringing you a video of summon Druid Rathma, bears for tier 2. Um, this idea kind of, Cirque was really pushing this summon bear being really good for Declone and Lucian. He was doing it all season. I think you saw his video probably. Getting that kill for T2 Declone and then doing the extremely fast Tier 2 Lucian. I'm not sure if it was the fastest recorded, but it was damn fast, so maybe it might have been. I don't think I saw faster. I didn't pay too much attention to Lucian. In any case, the one that was not done yet for this build was Rathma, and I was a bit curious, so I tested it one run unplugging and it performed extremely well, so I decided to build it, the day I made this kill yesterday and just leveled a druid, got the gear quickly and just went straight into the fight. So I just hit 86 when I went into here and just going in to the fight because I think it was just going to be really strong. So the point of this build is really you're using the new Denmother helm that lets you summon 2 additional bears. That's why I have 4 bears. You can't do wolves at this time. And you just use ravens for some additional chill effect and some additional DPS since it's kind of free. You're transforming to a wolf for mostly for the lycanthropy for the life. You get an additional like 1.1k life, and then you also get the movement speed when you stack Feral and Rage. So you saw how quickly the bears are kind of taking down men down there, and they actually do really well on the golems. Of course, you have to be a bit careful because if you're too far away from the target, the bears will actually run back to you. It's similar to how golems work, so you kind of want to be near your target when you're summoning them, and then trying to keep up to 4 bears alive, and then keeping your ravens as close to 15 as you can. You see there, I was hitting the tower just to get some stacks of Feral Rage up, just for the movement speed. You don't really need it in this phase. I like the Feral Rage for phase 2 and 3, but you don't really need it, to be honest, the movement speed at all. But it is nice to break the cages from Rathma in phase 2 and 3, so that's the main purpose there for the build. But I was really surprised at the damage of the bears, and to be honest, the ravens do pretty decent, like, continual damage. Obviously, you can't really target much with them. They kind of go out and do their thing. In this phase, it's not that bad, but in later phases, when you have the bosses that are immune out and the knights out, they're kind of annoying. But that's where you have your bears anyway. The bears are the main DPS here. Obviously, when you're in a wolf form, you're giving up the ability to use Gust, but I mean, you're gaining, 1k life for free, so that's obviously a free trade if you can do that. But as we're going through, I mean, he hasn't casted P Nova once. Damage is just so high that you're just instant phasing them between the bears and the ravens. The bears have a huge sheet damage, but you also have a really high Heart of the Wolverine, so that's giving a huge aura boost for them. That's kind of really helping with their DPS. I know at the beginning, I summoned the Heart of the Wolverine on my CTA side. I really should have summoned it with my Athenas out for 3 more skills, but I was not really practiced with this build, so I was not really having the muscle memory down for that. But phase 1, I think phase 1 is, phase 3 is always the hardest, but phase 1 is kind of annoying, just dodging those spires if you're not used to the fight, so wasn't sure how that was going to go, but it was pretty smooth. So the benefit of this build, obviously, aside from these bears doing absurd damage, is that having summons out for this fight is just so massive, because the hardest thing about this fight in general is the Void Knights, either in phase 2 and 3, mostly in phase 3, of course, and cages at the same time. And if you have 4 bears out, it's similar to when you had Necro with revives. Eating a cage, like having the cage the boss cage one of your summons and not you means that you're not going to get stuck getting spammed by knights or get into FHR lock or anything like that. So that's usually the make or break if you dying or eating a whole bunch of pots while you're standing there. So that is huge. But also these bears, I think I have 12k damage, so 12k times 4 bears plus I have a howl with 400 plus percent ED. That's added to their ED percentage. So they're doing massive amounts of damage. And then you have of course the 15 ravens doing a little bit of chunk as you go. It's really quick. And you'll see that at the beginning here, once the bears are on Rathma, and once I look over at his health eventually, yeah, you see we already chunked down almost entirely to his first phase there within the first few seconds of the fight. So this is when it gets a little bit more difficult. Still easy in phase 2, but you want to basically run closer to the knights and then spawn your bears. You see how they kind of retarget closer to. So you have to be a little bit close and spawn your bears. That was the first time I got caged. That's why I have Feral Rage on my left click there, is to actually instant break the cages is once I'm caged. The summons will break the cage, but it's when they target it, and it's not reliable to wait for them to target it. And so you really want to have that main means. That's why I went with Athena's. Like I said, I don't take credit for designing this bear build. I mean, someone, that Cirque kind of posted it, and he was, you know, pushing this all season. I'm sure some others were. I just kind of took the concept that they were working with and kind of made what I know would work for Rathma, and that was, making sure to use Athena's for the cages and a few other items just because just my experience with the fight, I knew that was where it was lacking and where they had some difficulties beating tier 2. So you see the knights, this phase is actually, to be honest, really easy just because, again, you have all the bears out taking the damage and you have your ravens doing a bit of DPS, and all you have to do is just make sure you have a few bears spawned near the knights and they'll kind of just, I think it's like up between 2 and 4 hits for them to kill a knight, which is kind of crazy. And they have some splash damage, so you can see there, it just kind of makes it trivial. I'm just kind of eating damage now because I know the phase is basically over. So not many pots used there at all. Pretty crazy, to be honest. I'll go through the gear at the end, but I would say it's not quite budget. It's not high-end expensive either. I do have some like 16 life charms and stuff like that for grand charms, so there's room for improvement there, but my helm is good. I have some good items elsewhere, so it's definitely not completely on the budget side either. I do think you can make this a lot more budget than what I did it with. Again, this was just the first run, so I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do here. I wasn't totally positive it was as good as Pluggy made it seem, so I wanted to be a bit cautious going in there in case for some reason the damage wasn't as good as it seemed on Pluggy, but to my surprise it was about the same, obviously just a ping difference, so it was, the damage is just that high. I don't think you can do this build not in wolf or bear form. There's definitely a reason to do bear or wolf. I like Feral Rage. There's some issues with hunger in that, but you could do them all and not move as quickly. Suffer a bit with bear frames, of course, you'd have to deal with. You'd have a bit more life, so there's some trade-off. I like being able to move fast, but I think either one would work, to be honest. You just have to change your IS frames depending on what you're doing there. But I think Wolf is just the easier gearing route, or at least thinking about, but Bear is definitely doable. You can't really do it without transforming because, as you saw, without the Wolf, I was at like 2.2k life, and you can't really do the fight at that low. You'll just die to damage too quickly. So you definitely need the transform here. I do run around here a little bit here, just getting some experience. Like I said, I'm only 86. I was curious if I can get 20% here to tick to 87 before going into phase 3. So that's kind of my idea here. Since I am using Athena's, I could actually Feral Rage like melee all these minions to kind of make it go faster, or even some stuff in phase 1 and 2 and 3, but I also forgot to repair my weapon, so it only had like 40 or something durability going into this, so I kind of remembered that, so I was like, I probably shouldn't do anything stupid here. Some of you may remember me breaking my weapons in previous videos a few seasons ago, so I don't want to live that nightmare again. But what we're doing with the Athenas is we're just putting in 15 IAS to get 65 IAS to get us 5 frames per attack with Feral Rage. And that's good enough. You don't need to try to juice it up with shales. What I'm doing is using a 5-socketed one. It was already upped from someone that gave me the Athenas. So I put in res slash minus requirement jewels. You could do a non-upped version. That's what I did on Pluggy, so that you don't need the minus requirements and the jewels are just a bit cheaper. End result is about the same since you're only using it to break cages. A non-upped one seems to have enough damage for that. The idea in P3, you just want to damage enough to phase, then kind of focus out the knights and the souls, of course. You're almost always going to double phase like I did here just because your damage is just too high. So you got to be a bit careful about that. And I could probably play it a little bit better, but the idea is to try to make sure you have, you know, I'd say between 2 and 4 bears out, of course, and just kind of run near the knights to make them kind of aggro the knights. You are going to eat a lot of sludges. It is very difficult, or very lengthens the fight a lot if you try to dodge the sludges here, because you have to be close, somewhat close to the minions, or your bears will run away. Not always, sometimes they'll stay targeted, but it's not really realistic to hug men down and trying to summon bears out, because they'll just wander back to you, or they'll kind of try to target Mendel and Rathma while they're immune. So the only way to guarantee them to kind of attack them, the knights that aren't immune right now, is to be closer to when you're spawning, or have them, you know, not spawning directly near the boss within range, so they target the knights. So that's all you're doing here, just running out. This phase took a little bit longer than it needed to. I didn't have the best target selection there. You saw I dinged 87. But, you know, we're done 2 out of 3 phases here. We have a ton of pots left. We haven't dropped the cube. There it is there. So we kind of know this is pretty safe. You see the Ravens actually just phased out. Wrath started his Rathma or the Mendown phase there. So the Ravens are doing some damage. The Bears are obviously the main DPS, but the Ravens are doing quite a bit of damage as well. Point I was trying to make was, at this point you have a lot of pots, and this is a bit of a dangerous spot, so you should just over pot, or just, you know, pot every time you hit half, or a little bit less, because you're guaranteed at this point as long as you don't get one shot. I should have double potted there quicker. You know, it does look like you go down pretty low. You have to keep in mind that, like, the orb health system, so that was about like a 600 HP drop, I think. You can hit 1 HP in wolf form, and you'll just transform back to human, so you could just quickly transform again. Of course, you'll be at 1 health, so you gotta not have any random tick damage or something to die, but is a bit of a free thing that you get with wolves and bears. So that's Mendel dead, and I think Rathma's just gonna die to Ravens there. So that was really the fight. I mean, there was a couple low health drops, a little bit, you know, around 600, which isn't too low, but it's kind of what it was. So that was 23 pots there. Like I said, I could have quite a bit more HP with some better gear and maybe some more levels there. I mean, each level I'm gaining 2% more from lycanthropy, so that's also massive, and then some stat points as well. So definitely helps. I think with perfect gear and stuff, or not perfect, but like really better gear and the more levels, you could get, you know, closer to 4K life, which seems a lot jump from here, but we'll just kind of have that. I could snapshot a bit more going into phase 1. You could actually use plus summon gear going into phase 1 and throw it on the ground, but that's not what I did. So there's the Athena's 3/3 5-socket with his res minus requirement jewels, 3-jaw Denmother, Venom War with max cold res, a decent Amuse with 75 PLR all res, cannot be frozen, some max poison PLR boots, a nice PLR ring with res, just a stat belt. Lava gouts were I just wanted some fire res. I had honestly no idea what to put there. So I just put some lava gouts to get me to 88 fire, just because. Then we maxed Grizzly, Wolves, Spirit, and Ravens. So you see the 12.4k there. I still have a bit more levels I could be putting into lycanthropy just to get a bit more, but yeah, that's really it. So I mean, this build is super strong, and yeah, I hope you like it.